Hey everybody, I'm Dakeem and I'm back again with another episode of Casting Directors Say What, where I spotlight an amazing casting director in this industry with the hopes of shining a light on what we do. A lot of what we do is kind of misunderstood, and I would love to sort of spotlight all the wonderful people that have trained me, I know in this industry, and that I work with. And I hope that this can also sort of help you talented peeps out there navigate this crazy industry. Now, today, everybody, we have a special guest, a very special guest. A part, just like Liz Lewis, a part of my career I kind of owe to this woman and the training and insight that she gave me. She really held my hand and helped me through learning this industry. And I just can't say enough about her. Everybody, Angela, introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Angela Mickey. I am a casting director with Liz Lewis Casting Partners, and we cast everything across the board: on-camera commercials, voiceover and radio. We've been doing a lot of animation and scripted podcasts, indie film, TV, Hallmark movies, a lot of real people searches, everything across the board.
Hey, thank you, Angela, for being here. I'm just so happy to see you and talk to you today. So let's get started, all right?
Perfect.
Now, first and foremost, Angela, how'd you get started in casting?
Well, I started as an actor. I was a musical theater performer and I went through all my training. And when I kind of finished it, I realized that, I'm a mezzo, so I sounded like I was 35, but I looked like I was 16. So I needed a couple of years to grow into myself. And, I did the waiting tables and auditioning thing, and I started to get concerned I was going to get sucked into the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
I was a good waitress, let me tell you. And
Yeah.
I had a friend who worked for Liz and they were looking for a receptionist. And I thought to myself, you know what, that would be a really cool thing, because I think it's common for actors that you kind of come out of conservatory and you feel like you have a lot of tools in your toolbox, but you don't really know what to do with them and how to make this a career. So I thought it might be really great to just kind of see what a working actor did the day in and day out. And my intention at the time was to return to acting. But then, as I started learning more about casting, that actually my kind of love shifted and I started to enjoy casting more than I did performing. So
See, that's just like me, Ange. Like I was chasing all these retail jobs while trying to pursue an acting career. And then Liz was like, you want to work here? After I had interned for a minute and I wanted to learn the business. And just like you, I was just like, I think I like being behind the camera more than I like being in front of it. Now, that leads me to my next question. Why casting? What about this industry, Ange? What about this industry that has kept you in it so long? Because, there's so many ups and downs to just this industry in general, but why has your heart kept you in here?
Well, I think one thing that I learned was that I much preferred putting together the puzzle pieces of an entire piece versus the puzzle piece of a character. Mm-hmm. So being able to kind of look at a director's vision and see, okay, what might be options that might help fulfill this? So that became really interesting to me. It's very much, thinking about outside of the box. And getting to know actors and advocating for actors was really fun for me. I never had the instinct to become an agent. That wasn't really where my thing was, but actually looking at a piece and putting it together. And I think what's kept me in it is the fact that I'm able to cast so many different kinds of things. So I think it's easy to kind of get into a rote if you're only doing one thing, but to be able to, one day be doing a commercial, the other day doing a horror film, the other day doing, an animated series. It's all kind of fun and kind of keeps you on your toes. So I love that.
It never gets boring because you're constantly polishing your creative tools, right? Mm-hmm. I remember when I used to go in the studio and I would work with Brooke Thomas, and it was always exciting the beginning of the day. How are we going to do this? How are we going to block this? How are we going to make it easy for the actors, but not waste time so we can get what we want? And just discovering that and putting that together, that works. Oh, all right, let's have some fun. It's just so much more fulfilling than, okay, when I go into work, it's going to be A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C, so it's just it's really great to hear that, it's the creative side that pulls you also, just like me. Now, the industry has changed a lot. And what do you think actors should be doing now as opposed to back in 2019 if they're just getting started? Like, what do you think new actors should be doing now to get just started in this industry? Like, you wake up and you're like, yeah, I want to perform, I want to be an actor. But just like you said, what do I do now? I kind of have the tools, I know how to act, but what?
Well, I think part of it, one of the great things that has happened since then is that I think casting is so much more accessible than it was beforehand.
Oh, yeah.
So many casting offices, ours, my office included, made attempts to do generals, to see talent, open ourselves up on social media, to be in communication. So I think as a new actor, getting to know the offices and the casting directors in your area that you want to audition for, seeing what their presence is there a way to interact with them? I think this industry is a lot more personal than people think, and it's about relationships, and I don't mean that in a nepotism way. I mean in the sense that we want to know you, we want to know who you are, and that we can trust you on set with our director, and that you're going to be easy to work with, and that you have great ideas. I think the other thing that I find is that I think as a new actor, particularly if you're coming out of training, in some ways your creativity can melt away. You end up becoming clay. Like, you want to just walk into the room or the Zoom room or whatever and be like, tell me what to do. But from my perspective as a casting director, I want you meeting me halfway with your own ideas and your own thoughts on who this role is and what you would do with it, and not being so horned into just logical specifics. You know what I mean? So it's like, keeping that creativity alive, remembering why you wanted to do this in the first place, that instinct to play. That's one thing that I think is really, really important to keep fresh for yourself as a new actor.
And don't you think that making sure that their personality is coming through, even just a little bit, is important? Because again, we are not just hiring the best actor, but we're trying to hire the best people too, because we got to spend 14 to 18 hours on a set with you.
And having something in your life that's outside of this industry, I mean, that's what makes you a well-rounded person. And as a performer, part of it is you're being hired to recreate someone's existence, even whether it's a fictional person or a real person, but you're trying to become a well-rounded three-dimensional character. And to do that, you have to be out in the world. You have to be out experiencing things. And I think, it's really easy for this industry to beat you up as a performer. So I think that having some lifeline that is outside of this industry, that is completely separate from it, is kind of what can keep you sane.
Yeah, and like so many of what actors are asked to do is to recreate sort of life experiences. So you got to go out there and get a life first. So
and be a people watcher. Be a people watcher. People are weird, and it's like if you
and fascinating.
If you're on the subway and you just watch people, I mean, don't get called out for it, but if you watch people are just odd folk, and and I think that is a huge part of it as well.
Yeah, you can take those little personality things that you see in a stranger and be like, what if my character had that little quirk a little? Let's explore that,
Absolutely. And I think also as a new actor, if you don't have representation, you have to self-advocate. I think that I find a lot of actors are really nervous about getting in touch with casting directors, feeling that they're bothering them. But if you don't, how do we know what you're doing? That's part of your job. And fortunately or unfortunately, and I would argue it's your job even if you do have representation, because there's a direct relationship between you as an actor and us as casting that's independent of our relationship with you through your agent. So you still have to kind of cultivate that.
That's a brilliant answer, Angela, because it brings me into my next thing about networking as an actor was something that it was always difficult for me because I wasn't like a bar person or a club person by the time I got to acting. So in talking about networking, well, I have kind of three questions. Like, do you personally like to be contacted as a casting director?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And like, how do you like to be contacted?
Email is great, but also through social media. I'm pretty responsive. I'm out there and about. I think, you don't need to email me every day unless you have something really exciting to tell me. But every 6 weeks, every 2 months, that's totally fine. We're humans, so we have a lot of people and a lot of headshots and reels and stuff in front of us. So we need to be reminded, even if I know you and we're good friends, I still need to sometimes be reminded. And I also think one thing that I found is that a lot of actors will make a relationship with a casting director and then we'll figure, okay, if casting wanted me to audition for this. Well, she knows me, she would call me, and they don't submit. But
Mm,
actually, that is the opposite of what I'm thinking. I'm assuming if I put out a breakdown and you
you're
haven't
paying
submitted, that
attention.
you're not available or you're not interested. So you still need to kind of go through, do that and make sure we know that you're interested in whatever project we're working on.
Yeah, I do
Um,
that too, where I put out a job and I'm like, I've got so many people. I'm like, I hope some of the people that I think are right for this, but I'm not thinking of, are paying attention right now.
yeah, absolutely.
Now, what, and in keeping on that topic, we do get a lot of emails, right?
Mhm.
And I get a lot of emails that are professional and then unprofessional. What are some of the things what's an email that will get your attention compared to an email that will be like, yeah, spam, I got to get back to work?
Well, I think something that makes your materials easily accessible is going to be important, but also something that shows your personality. Like I had one actor who she started reaching out to me in like spring of 2020, and she'd have her materials, and then she'd be like, "P.S. My goal during the pandemic is to learn to cook, and this is the recipe I'm working on right now." And then 2 months later, okay, I have a new recipe, and then photos of it. And it was just a funny thing. It let me into a little bit about her personality. I kind of looked forward to them. Even if I've forgotten her name, I'm gonna be like,
Oh,
recipe, who is
right.
that? It was a keyword that like picked in. So it's like clickbait. It's something that's memorable and that we associate with you. And it doesn't, not everybody should do that. That was her thing, but it's something that's specific to you. If you like photography, hey, these are the photos that I take, and it's something that gives us a little hook into who you are outside of just here's my resume, here's my reel, here's my
Give
photos.
me a job, right? That's brilliant. That would have got my attention because I'm like, oh, what's she making now? Because I want to see if I can make it,
Right.
And it has nothing to do with acting or a gimme. That is so important. She's a smart cookie, that one.
Yeah.
Now, realistically, Ange, do you have advice for actors who have decided to make this a career choice? I know you talked about this a little bit, but if you're just getting started, where's a good place to start outside of just taking a good acting class?
Well, I mean, there's obviously the websites that put out the breakdowns. I think that that's important. I also think it's important to really, watch what you can. So much, in the commercial world, so much is
Yes.
a reflection on what's happening in wider entertainment. So it wouldn't doubt me that we're going to see a bunch of commercials that are like takes off of The Last of Us
Mhm.
in 6 months. You know what I mean? Being aware of what's out there, and also stuff that's prior to when you started your career. I've been in time, in commercial world, there's a lot of things that are mockumentaries, and I would make that reference, and I'd have actors who've never seen a Christopher Guest movie, and I'm like, you've never seen Best in Show, you've never seen Waiting for Guffman. That's such a key thing if you're having to do that kind of deadpan comedy,
Right.
or having to have done stuff where it was film noir and they didn't have no idea what film noir was. So if you're going in for a Coen Brothers movie, that's a really specific thing that they do. Being aware of what that is, it just gives you more information to walk into the casting room with. So
Yeah, I was coaching someone once who was trying to get into voiceover, and I asked them why voiceovers and like what kind of things they like, thinking they were going to give me examples of something that fueled their, desire to do this. And all they kept saying was, I don't watch TV. I don't listen to this. I don't listen to that. And I'm like, well, then what made you want to do this? And then I told them, I was like, you got to go and watch a cartoon, a commercial. You got to watch something.
absolutely, being aware of what's out there is a really, really important thing.
It's research because we kind of know too when you haven't done your research, if you're coming in for a specific show, like if it's Law and Order, but you act like you're auditioning for the Goldbergs, and you're like, yeah, come on now. All you got to do is go on YouTube and write Law and Order. Now, and you've been doing so great with my questions. I've got like two bonus questions for you.
Go for
But
it.
one is, what is one thing about self-tape and virtual casting that you wish actors understood?
I wish they would relax about it. I mean, there's kinds of two fields of thought. Some people are very much like, oh, you should have a ring light and you should have your special background. You should have this. I need to be able to see you and I need to be able to hear you.
Yeah.
And then the most important thing is your creative work. And this is something we saw, especially in 2020, where you saw all these actors running out and making these elaborate self-tape setups, and they looked and sounded great, but they had put all their energy in that and not in the acting work. And to me, that's misplaced. a misplaced ratio. I've been in callbacks where it's the director who's going offline all the time because their internet is terrible. So, it happens, and we know that, and there's a ton of grace that is extended to it. So, and I'm also not somebody who's always expecting actors to run out and spend money. I don't think you are producers. I don't think you should be asked to be producers. So I think, doing the best you can with what you've got, pairing up with a friend so that you guys can kind of be each other's, buddies and helping each other out when it's available. Don't spend money to self-tape. That is my biggest thing. We actually put it out on all of our self-tape constructions. Do not spend money. If you cannot do this without spending money, please contact casting and we'll set up a Zoom with you. So that's my number one thing. I'm very much about that, but I think it's important for actors to create boundaries for themselves. So what, a lot of my actor friends had said, oh my God, I did take after take after take. And I'm like, why? Why are you doing that? You're not being paid for this. If you were to be in my virtual audition room, you'd be in there for 10 minutes. So I tell them, you have 10 minutes, you can do as many takes as you want in 10 minutes, and then you need to walk away. And if you want, if it's killing you, you think you can do one better take, wait 3 hours, you can do another 10 minutes, but then that's it. Pick your two top choices and then go on with your day and do all the other fun stuff that makes you a good performer. So I think that's really, really important. Aside from that, it's just basic things like read the directions. Our directions are super detailed. Yeah. I would almost say detailed to a fault, but take the time because usually we're trying to do it so that it's not a mystery. There are not questions. And then if you are given the opportunity to do more than one take, which I always ask for people to do 2 takes, unless it's just like, tell me about yourself. Try to give us a little bit of a range. That's what you would do if you were coming into the room. We'd probably do something that had a little bit more energy, something a little bit more laid back, or we change the relationship of who you're talking to, or we change what you're trying to do to them. Those are the 3 things I think of in 2 takes in terms of our self-tapes. So just give us a range, because what we want to do is be able to present you to our director and production team and say, hey, if you will go with this actor, you have a range of options with them, and there's versatility with them.
Yeah. Now, and this has kind of been a crazy week. I've been getting a lot of feedback from people about what we do, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of it sounds like a lot of people that are talking about it don't really understand fully. But like you said, like you want like at least 10 minutes at least for you to work out your audition. You shouldn't be doing anything longer than that. Here's a quick question though that I wanted to throw in there because you mentioned this. If given the option, Angela, of submitting 3 takes or 2 takes when you're casting and going through submissions, what's the top number for you?
I think 2, unless you have something really a crazy idea that you want to send us. I'm open to your creativity, but I think 2 is probably, I'm not going to begrudge someone who does 3, but I think right. 2 is probably the standard that I would expect.
Now, what's one misunderstanding about being a casting director that just drives you crazy?
I mean, I know that people have said not agents. We're not the decision makers, so we don't have the final deciding making power. I've talked to actors that said like, "Oh, I go in for this casting director, but she never hires me." Well, that's not her prerogative. It's the director and the production team's prerogative. But I think the thing that really bothers me is not understanding that we are advocates for them and that we are there on their side. And I see it as being a former actor. When I was going through training, there was very much a status differential that was encouraged, that actors were down here, casting and agents were up there. You're constantly begging them for work and trying to impress them. And that's not the truth. We are peers. We are just as important as each other. I am only as good as the people who come in my room. And I'm here and I'm trying to do everything I can to give you the tools to have a successful audition. We constantly are fighting for people. We're fighting to have equity on sets. We're fighting to make sure you are being respected. We're advocating for you if you need accommodations. So realize that we are here working on behalf of you. Even though we're hired by production, we still are working for you. I watch that. We don't watch all the tapes that come in. I watch every single tape, every single take that someone does. the self-tape world, yes, we are asking for more people to self-tape, but that's allowing a lot of people who weren't getting in rooms to get in rooms. But I watch every single one of those. And I think, you hear it online and stuff that, the casting's asked a million people to tape and they're not listening to it. No, I'm watching everything.
Yeah. And, think about this, actors too. Anytime you go to an audition and a casting director gives you a second chance and a third chance, and God, if they give you a fourth chance, that really means that they're trying to get the best performance out of you to present to the client, which goes right back to, that's how we show that we're advocating for you. You could come and do one take and we be like, thanks, bye, all right, who's next? And not try to work with you to polish out your appointment. We could do that. Most of us don't. We're like, all right, let's get rid of that first take and let's try this and keep going. I'm going to get a good take because I want to submit you,
Well, and I also think that a lot of times actors think that direction is a correction when it's not.
Yeah.
It's like, we didn't ask you to do a second take because your first take was terrible. In fact, most likely we saw something interesting in your first take and want to build upon that,
Right,
or
let's
shift
go
upon that.
further.
Yeah. And what other layers can we show to this? So, it's a collaborative. I would say treat it like a 5-minute play date with the casting director. How many different ways can we do this? How can we have fun doing that? Instead of thinking, and you hear it, I'm sure you've heard, oh, don't suck it on my second take. Is that the direction you're going to give me? Well, no, that wasn't what I was going to say.
But thanks for putting that in my mind now.
Exactly.
It's like when I have people in the room and I'm like, come on, you got one more good take in you. I believe in you. Go for it. It's like something that they do that sparks our imagination because we know what the client is looking for, and we're like, hey, you did something. Let's play with that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Now, Ange, here's your final bonus question. The Academy Awards are coming up on Sunday. So I'd love to know, not particularly in the category of what your best picture was, but what was your most enjoyable movie-going experience or television watching experience of 2022?
See, all I can think of is The Last of Us because I'm obsessed with it right now.
Yeah, me too. Oh my God, that last episode was really crazy.
Everyone is, and everyone, I'm like, that person should win an Emmy. No, that person should win an
Yes.
Emmy.
I think they need just a little bit more infected though, because they're not zombies and they need to show us a little bit more of that. But I'm with you. I'm obsessed with that. And I have to recommend, if you haven't started watching it yet, you got to watch Poker Face.
Oh, I haven't.
Oh my God, Ange, with Natasha
Leone.
Yeah. Just watch the first episode, and that's all you need. And then you'll just be like, okay, I'm in. Because that's what happened to me. I was like, let me watch this. And I was like, oh, that was so good. And then I binged it because I was so far behind. And I thought the 7th episode was the last episode. And I was like, that was a weird ending for a season. And then I realized it's 10. The 9th episode I was like yelling at the TV. So make sure you check that out. But listen, everybody, thank you, Angela. That was amazing. Thank you for sharing your insight. I think it's really important for people to hear different perspectives from different casting directors to know, that, again, we are advocates for you and we really are rooting for you guys. So thank you so much for sharing this and putting yourself out there. How can people get in contact with you?
You can email me at angela@lizlewis.com.
All right. Thanks, Angela McKee. And everybody, we'll see you next month for another episode of Casting Directors Say What? Bye.